up, everybody? This is Noble Discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about a movie that was actually recommended to us by our viewers in our chats from a while ago. We're going to be talking about the film Three Idiots. Like this was we're going kind of back a little bit to watch this movie, but it's on Netflix, and we neither one of us had watched the trailer. We didn't know anything about it. We just went in blind on the recommendations of our viewers. So thank you guys for that. This is happening because of you. So I think most of you have probably seen this movie, but for those of you who have not seen the movie, do know that we are going into spoiler territory here. So if you're interested in seeing the movie without spoilers, go and check it out on Netflix, and then you can come back and see what we had to say about it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into this. So, like I was saying, we did not know anything about this movie. And based on the title, I actually thought it was going to be kind of like a slapstick Indian comedy, almost kind of like the Indian version of Dumb and Dumber or something like that. So that's what I thought based on the title and the thumbnail that I saw for the movie before I booted up the film. And what I got was a very emotionally charged, inspirational driven type film with with comedic aspects, but a lot of a lot of kind of rough themes if you were not ready for them going into this film. So like that kind of caught me off guard at first, just because of the fact that, like I said, I went into with like no knowledge but a preconceived notion based on the title and the thumbnail. And I have to say though, I was pleasantly surprised. And from the moment that I first laughed, to the very last moment of like the very last sweet moment of the movie, I found myself like really engaged in it. But how did you end up feeling about it, kind of going in?
I had the same kind of assumption as you that I thought it was going to be like Dumb and Dumber or like the Three Stooges kind of thing where there's just going to be three guys doing like idiot stuff because I mean it's called the
Yeah.
Three Idiots, right? But I think I had the same experience as you where it started out like kind of funny. It was interesting. It didn't feel dumb. I was just thinking it's gonna be a silly film. But what happened was it was a silly film with really heartfelt moments and I think a solid inspirational message
Message.
behind it, which I appreciate. And I'll get into it later. I have a little bit of uh, I don't agree with the message 100%, but I think that the way that the movie um, like presents itself and the fact that it's giving this message of follow your dreams is a good thing to go by. So I don't challenge the message in the sense of I think it's a good message to send out, but I don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah, and one thing I was thinking about is because like the movie obviously, well, not obviously, but the movie meant a lot to me personally because I have felt very connected to the situation. I went to an engineering school for my college, but I majored in art, and all of my friends were engineers. So I was kind of like Farhan, where I'm at an engineering school wanting to actually pursue an artistic degree. And unlike Farhan, I never actually dove into engineering itself, but because of that setting, I was already kind of pulled in because a lot of my closest friends from college are engineers, and I'm the artist in a group of engineers. So like part of me wants to like show them this movie because of all the engineering aspects of the film that I know that they would also get a kick out of. But one of the things that the reason like one of like the message felt so like strong and resonated with me was for twofold, was because one, I'm an artist and I've always been encouraged to go after my dreams, so it is just reaffirming a message that I believe in for myself. But two, is because one of my roommates who was in college with me at that engineering school is Indian and was at that school because his parents wanted him to be an engineer, and all he wanted to do was draw. And he was a very talented artist. He actually taught me how to work on a Wacom tablet. He taught me how to draw digitally, and I'm able to use Photoshop as well as I can today, even for the purposes of our show and our thumbnails, because of what started with my friend back in college. And so to see, and I know that when talking to him, he would always talk to me about how his parents would always be like, they want him to be an engineer, they want him to do this, they want him to be, or a lawyer, or things like this. And so he's pursuing the dreams of his parents, not necessarily his own dreams. And so there's a part in the back of my mind that automatically kind of associates this kind of message of do the thing that's going to get you paid with various types of people of color like communities, but specifically because I have it most related to my Indian friend within the Indian culture, that this feels like, from an outside looking in, this feels like something I would hear come up again and again. So when I'm watching the movie with that experience in the back of my mind, I'm seeing this message and thinking, okay, this is really good that this is an Indian movie saying these things, because it can normalize the expectation that you don't necessarily have to just go and do the job that's going to get you a lot of money. You can go and do the thing that will make you happy and become wealthy in pursuing that dream, because now your job has become your fun as well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that that concept is it's very much a thing in India as it is in America, despite what people think. Because, I mean, America is thought of as the American dream, and it is to a degree. You can, pursue what you want to pursue, but the reality of it isn't always, a thing. Like, there's definitely tons of people who are able to become artists here and chase their dreams and such, but then there's other people who just don't actually have the opportunity to do that. So, and like that, like me being one of those persons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but growing up and like going to college, I was also pushed into studying stuff that I didn't want to study. I was to, go into economics and business and stuff like that. But I came out of it like being like, oh, forget this. I'm going to chase my dreams and go to art school. And I did that. Now I don't do it. I don't do art because I can't. I mean, this show is my art. So
Mm-hmm.
support me. But thank you. Oh, and Chris too. No.
Yes, I'm also here.
But I like that. I think it's a good idea. I am 100% on board with people chasing their dreams. And I don't think that that it's right for people to be forced or suppressed into doing it. But I think there should also be a face of reality that not everyone's gonna make it. You should have a plan B. I wish I had a plan B. I wish I maybe just got a degree in something else, but I don't even know if that would have mattered or not. But it's a different life here in America than it is in India, so it'd be hard to understand that kind of pressure in India, especially like where in the movie we see the kind of different levels and the different stakes that the characters have. And there's one character, I think his name was
Raju.
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 He was the one who had like the most to lose because
Mm-hmm.
his family really needed him to
Make
find
money.
success. Yeah. And then the other guy, his family was doing okay, and so he's able to follow his dreams. And boy, did he get lucky getting that like right at like he just got like an internship or like work study with someone that he
In
idolizes.
Hungary.
Yeah, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wow, how lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost feels a little wrong to show that because that almost never happens for people. So, and it's kind of in a sense whimsical to me, where like these characters are basically like what Rancho said: if you just do what makes you happy, then you will be successful. Um, and he even becomes like a really rich guy later. But
Mm-hmm.
he's also smart. But I think the thing that I kind of choose to take away more so than just finding a successful career by doing what you love. What I kind of took out of it more was like kind of looking at success as not in terms of money,
Mm-hmm.
but the value is in what you have, like your family and like people that you love, and like you may not have like a big house and stuff, but you have a place to live, and you know you have the chance to even go to the school in the first place, so stuff like that.
That at the end that was going to be one of the things when that I forget the other guy's name who was always in that was said I was going to come back 10 years later and I was going to show you that I'm more successful than you. I thought that might have been something that they were going to go for where it's like, well, you don't have I here I am, I literally ran away from my friends and like the woman I love and they actually came to find me. My life is so rich be and enriched because I am surrounded by love. And what do you have? That's what I thought. That's for a second there. I thought that that's where they were gonna go, but then they actually did do the whole thing of like, oh, the person that I actually am more monetarily successful than you, so I actually do win that bet, even without even trying. Um, but there's a lot of things that I liked. Like the whole thing about Rancho that I did like was his willingness to challenge accepted norms. It's something that like I want to challenge myself to do for myself. But so when seeing it from him, it was something that I really admired. And also, I liked the way he challenged the system of how we learn because that once again I saw a lot of my experiences growing up in things that Rancho was saying or things that I've heard other people say to me, and his whole like purpose being built upon learning for the sake of creating and getting better as opposed to learning for the sake of the grade. And I remember always when I was in high school and having those moments where someone would get upset because they got an A minus instead of an A, and it became doing test taking became more about memorization and regurgitation rather than actually learning the material. And now here we are, like, a decade or so outside of high school, and we don't even remember most of the stuff that we learned in high school. And I think about when I went to college, or and then eventually grad school, and how I actually did projects. And I think that that's when it clicked for me. I started doing projects, and the act of doing projects built that muscle memory in me, and then it made it so that I actually did learn the things and the tools I was using and the tricks that I was like able to utilize in the thing that I was doing, and it stuck with me to this day because I actually did learn it in my act in my body itself through the act of just diving in, doing it, learning by obviously, hey, this is what you can do, this is like things that you can, the ways to approach this, but then like doing it, and it just kind of built in me. So like that was something, another part of the movie and Rancho himself that kind of like resonated with me as a viewer.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that too because I have always, being someone that felt like got slipped through the cracks in the education system. And seeing that happen to other people as well. Like school is just designed in a way, I think, that it's very one size fit all, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people who do learn by reading and memorizing and taking these tests and stuff, and they like that's just how they learn it. But then there's other people like you and me that we need to actually physically work on projects to to grasp the concepts or remember the stuff, like just learning differently,
Mm-hmm.
and it does feel like a big social commentary on school as
Oh,
well,
yeah, it does.
and I completely agree with that. And I think that like really set in with me that
Mm-hmm.
like there is an issue with the way that people are being taught in schools. Like um, I don't know how it is in India,
Right.
but I think even though that sense of it resonates with me, I think that what they were going for more was the pressure, that
The pressure.
the
Yep.
pressure for people to do well on exams outweighs the actual education part of it, and that's where the problem is for them. I think for us in America, it's the one size fits all thing where it's very targeted, like the whole school system. Like this is a specific school for engineering, but our schools in America are supposed to be for everybody. It starts from like grade 1 through high school and then college, but from grade 1 to college, it's very mainstream. It only fits one kind of person, and you have to go to like vocational school or special schools for things that are more specific to what you want to learn, like art school. Like there's a different school for that, and it's different from college. So, and that's the cultural. Oops, sorry. That's the cultural difference I see, but it still felt like very at home for me. But um, I think seeing the differences in culture, but still having like similar issues, makes me feel like, oh, this isn't just an American problem. This is a problem that's probably everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And the commentary on there is obviously, like you said, it's there and it's palpable. Um, but yeah, so like we've talked about a little bit about like kind of the themes and the nature, the messages behind the film, but we want to also talk a little bit about like the film itself and the reasons why like I also just think it works just as a film. And it's because this director knows how to reward moments that seem inane or just like something that you might forget. There's so many moments of plants and payoffs, like little ones, throughout the entire film. When we first get to the engineering school and all of the freshmen are having to like pay respect to their seniors, and Rancho shows up and the guy's gonna pee on the door, and he makes like a little contraption that seems like that would be way too painful to one to actually do. But when you had that moment, and then later on, the guy who was like trying to challenge Rancho to like being better in 10 years, when they're adults and going on the road, you see him constantly peeing in just random places all over and over again, and it seems like, oh, he's just going to the bathroom, and then he even makes a comment like, "Oh, there's no toilets here or whatever." And then by the end of the movie, he goes to the wall to pee, and then the kids do the same thing to him that Rancho did to the guy at the start of the film. And like that's just one moment. There's the thing with the pen, and giving the pen to an honorable student, which that one you can kind of see coming. But what I didn't see coming was when the teacher actually gave the answer for the pencil, because when he gets asked by Rancho at the beginning of the film, or near the beginning of the film, of why wouldn't the astronauts just use a pencil because then they could have saved money, it seems like a very good argument. And I love the fact that Virus brings up at the end of the film the answer, and it's used as a moment to say, you don't know everything and you can't always be right. And that's Virus's frustration with Rancho this entire film, was that he felt like Rancho was always challenging him, and always, and like Rancho had the need to be right. But in this moment where he kind of like is able to, I guess, quote unquote, win by letting Rancho know, is like, there are things that you still have to learn too, but at the same time you just saved my daughter and I honor you. I love that moment because it's a moment of growth for both characters. You see that look in Rancho's face where he's just like, I understand, you're right. And you see that moment of acceptance of, and now that I've shown that I can teach you something, let me honor you because you are absolutely an exceptional student that has taught me as well. It's a great freaking scene.
Yeah, I really liked that, and I liked how actually I think his name is Chatu, the guy,
Mm,
the one that challenges Rencho.
yeah.
That he sees it later, and he was like, "Hey, how did you get that?" And he's all about like that character is like meant to be the difference between um, like the way Rancho believes people should be learn and be taught, and the way everyone else feels people should learn and be taught. And he's the one that doesn't get the pen, even though he is successful. I mean, he is successful, but
Mm-hmm.
everything that he's been doing is driven towards competition and being the best and doing the best and stuff like that versus actually earning it or like wanting to be happy and such and to me I feel like that's why he didn't get the pen.
Yeah, I also
it's
don't
a,
think he got the pen because he basically was just like everybody else. There was nothing that stood out about him. Because as long as you're willing, as long as all you're trying to do is just memorize the books and repeat the information, you're
mm-hmm,
not doing anything new. You're not
exactly.
challenging anything. You're not creating anything. And yeah, so you are just another machine, like
Mm-hmm.
Rancho said. You're just another cog. You're not anything special. And that's why Rancho does get the pen, and Chantu, I can't remember, probably pronouncing that wrong. Sorry, guys, but that's why he does not uh, get the pen. So yeah, no, I 100% agree.
Yeah, but I think I'm pretty sure that if Rancho wasn't at the school that he would have gotten the pen.
Well, no,
Or
because the
no, no,
guys,
no.
yeah,
Right,
hadn't
right,
given it
right.
away in
Because
32 years.
exactly. I was thinking like, oh, he gives someone a pen every
A
year.
year. Yeah, no, yeah. He's been holding on to it. And that's
Onto
why
that
that makes it so
one.
significant because he's never
Yeah.
met anyone like Rancho in 32 years of being at that school. And I do want to talk about Virus for a second, that character. I'm calling him Virus because that's what they call him in the movie. That is not his actual name, y'all. But he is an interesting character in many ways because he is definitely the villain of the film. He is the one that is being the roadblock to the main characters at every step of the way. He has it out for Rancho the most from like the first moment when Rancho questions him to basically that last moment when he literally is about to kick him out of the school, uh, but stops because his daughter is goes into labor. He is the main primary villain of this movie, and he has an interesting history around him because they mentioned the whole thing. There's a character named Joy who had something bad happen to his father. I think his father had a stroke or something, and he's basically fell behind in his work. And so he asks Virus for an extension, and Virus tells him that my son fell off a train and died, and I was here lecturing the next day. So don't give me excuses. I can give you sympathy, but I can't give you an extension. And that character Joy, man, you want to talk about a movie that I was not prepared to have like certain heavy themes. They have a really great like song and dance moment in the movie, and it's almost like that Mulan scene because it is like almost immediately cut off at the end. And I knew it was coming, but I still wasn't ready because we didn't see the character for a while, so I knew it was about to happen. But then yes, you see the character, and the character has killed himself. And so there becomes like going back to what you mentioned about the pressure, there's this other theme underneath that these students are pressured, and not just at the school but in all of India, since they had like I think he Rancho brought up the stats like having the number one suicide rates among teens. There's more teens dying of suicide than disease, and that doesn't only. And then by the end of the movie, we find out that the son wanted to be a writer, and the son didn't fall off a train. The son killed himself, the son of Virus. And so there are three characters that basically try to kill themselves or do kill themselves because of that are directly connected to Virus, and the third one being um, Raju, because Raju is put into the situation where he has to choose between betraying his best friend or letting his parents down, and so he just chooses neither option. And that's what this character does. This character Virus like tries to remove himself from any type of responsibility by saying, hey, you wouldn't blame, I don't know, the person that made the food for someone else getting a heart attack or something. I can't remember the example he gives, but he basically just kind of washes his hands of it and says it's not my fault, even though he's basically being called a murderer by Rancho and Pia later on in the movie. And we get to see his actions result in that because he puts these students in certain no-win situations from their viewpoint, and they don't see a way out. So he is directly contributing to three of the major like suicide related deaths of the film. And I think that that was another interesting aspect of the movie.
Yeah, and one thing I feel like is kind of missing from the movie is maybe something. I know he gets redemption because of that scene when he gives Rancho the pen.
Hmm.
But I think maybe I would have liked to see something like a change in the school, or something that
Mm.
happens to him where, not that he, I don't think he really needed to lose something, like to lose out on something, because it's not that kind of movie.
Right.
But I feel like I needed a little bit something more from him besides finally accepting Rancho for being a good student, because you're right, he is like the main villain of the movie, and he's the face that we see for representation of the suicides that are from pressure, and they're from him,
Yeah.
and he was very maniacal and villainous in those situations. Like, he was enjoying doing this to
Oh,
the
to
students, and
Raju.
yeah, and that's why I feel like he needed to be remorseful and change in that sense, and not just be like, okay,
I
here,
accept you.
Rancho, you're a good student, here's the pen. um,
Hmm.
I think, like, we need, you know what I mean? Like, I think, like, maybe if there's just one more scene of him just showing remorse and changing the way the school runs, even though I feel like that would be maybe a little bit hard to do, because that's not how real life is, and that's not how, like, he probably doesn't necessarily have the power to make a big change that way.
It also wouldn't happen immediately. It would be something that happened over time. You'd have to come back to that school like years later and see how the teachers like approach the curriculum in a different way.
Yeah, but it's just a little, it's a little hard to understand too, because I think that we do have this cultural barrier. We just don't know enough about how things work in India. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, if anyone out there has any comments about this, we'd love to read about it. Let us know.
Yeah, and like Playmat was saying in our chat, he was saying that I wonder how suicide is viewed in India from a cultural standpoint. It has different impacts depending on where you are in the world. So he's curious, and so are we. But it definitely was something that, as far as like, this is an Indian director and an Indian movie, um, and so from the standpoint of this film, it is definitely something that at least is a point of, it's enough of a concern that it is brought up multiple times within this movie. Not just, it's not just a one-off moment of one person killing themselves. It comes up again and again and again. And with the scene with Raju in particular, I remember we had already seen that that character was fine in the future, but I still found myself just being like kind of taken aback, like, wait a second, what? And then I started going through all these things in my head. It was like, is the character in the future like a figment of the imagination? Does he not actually exist? Does Rancho not actually exist? Which we'll get to that twist in a second too. But yeah, like that moment was for me personally, it like was a very challenging moment to sit through and to watch, and seeing the look of pain on the mother's face, and then seeing the next scene of Farhan talking to his parents, and his parents basically being like worried that, hey, if we put too much pressure, his mom saying, is he going to do the same thing as Raju? And then you get this really nice moment where he opens his wallet and he says, I was told to put this picture in my wallet by Rancho, and to look at it every day and to imagine what your faces would look like if I ever tried to do that myself. And I was just like, okay. So that's what I mean when I say like this isn't a one-off like topic. This thing is prevalent throughout the entire film. Specifically, like it's heavy in this section, but it's the undercurrent throughout everything that happens. And so however it is viewed overseas, it definitely is something that is at least somewhat a point of concern.
Yeah, and I think another good thing that I feel like I got to see is the different levels of wealth. So we have, like, people,
Yes.
they each character has a different level, and Rancho comes from, like he literally has nothing. He has no family, and you think, Raju really has it bad because his father is paralyzed, and his mother is basically taking care of them, and then and it just keeps going up from there. And then you have Peta, who looks like she's really wealthy because her father's really wealthy. And I think it's really interesting that we're able to see that even though all these characters have different levels of wealth, they all still have the same values and the same goals, and they all, they if you took away all those backgrounds, you would never know that they came from different backgrounds. So I think I
Right.
really enjoyed
They're
that
just
part.
people at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you think that. Oh, so I want to talk about Raju one more second. Just an aesthetic thing while I remember in my head. I thought it was always funny that every time they went to Raju's house, it went to black and white. Like that was really like that was so funny to me when they established it as like a black and white, and they played that entire scene in black and white. We're back to color. We're going through the movie, and then when they go to Raju's house later to like get the dad to take him to the hospital, it's back in black and white. In
Yes.
that moment, I was like, "This is a terrible thing that's happening because the father is literally dying." But I can't help but laugh in this moment because the film is black and white again, as if this place exists in reality as permanently black and white. So that was
Yeah.
just like a nice artistic touch that I
Yeah.
appreciated.
But that's
But the
also, yeah. Just to add on that, like that's one of the other reasons why I think that this movie was so palpable, because there are these moments where they throw in for humor,
Mhm.
and his dad is one of them. Like there's like a daydream of like him being on the
riding a
scooter
bike
with
through
Peta
there.
and Rancho. And I think that's great. Like those are really nice moments that they use to like flesh out the movie. I think like to really balance out the serious issues as well as making it a fun movie still to watch.
Absolutely. And then, like, one of the other big moments of the film is the fact that, because we do know that Rancho now, later in the film, doesn't come from anything, but it's positioned that he does at first because the two, like, Farhan and Raju, are sat down by Virus to talk about how much money Rancho's father makes. And it's like this huge number. And so everyone is like, well, Rancho, he's up here being all willy nilly and like living and floating like a butterfly, like with not a care in the world, but he has a safety net. So what the heck? It makes his stance feel like it holds less weight and less value, even if the things he's saying like make sense and they're true. It makes it kind of watered down knowing that, well, no matter what you do, you have a safety net because you come from money. But then we find out later that that's not actually the case. Rancho is actually going to school for somebody else, and like you said, is like has nothing, literally nothing, and is literally attending school under a different name to protect the name of somebody that is wealthier than he is. And so that moment just kind of like then paints Rancho in a new light again, because now you're realizing that everything he's doing for the sheer love of learning. And that is something that is special because it shows that he is absolutely practicing what he preaches, because he has nothing. He literally has nothing. And even you could argue that he doesn't even have the name. So all that he's doing is going to just bolster the career of somebody else, but he's still doing it anyway because he just wants to be there. And he has this moment where he tells, oh, what's this kid's name? The Minute Kid, a Millimeter.
Millimeter.
Yeah, where he tells Millimeter, is just like, hey, you can go anywhere to learn. All you need is a suit and just like to look like you belong there. And if you get caught, you go somewhere else. You buy a different outfit. And when he said that, I was like, he's saying that as if he's done it. And so at first I was thinking, is he not supposed to be here? But no, he was. He's just there under a different name. But that's how he started. And so I liked that. And that's what I talk about when I'm talking about how this moment has different plants and payoffs. There's all these little moments that through dialogue or actions that appear to be like mundane or inane, they have no consequence, but inevitably they come back in some way throughout the film and gives you a kind of aha moment or a oh moment, and it gives you that feeling of feeling good, similar to like how Ryan Johnson's like Knives Out movie felt.
Yeah, and I know we're running out of time right now, so I'm just gonna add quickly that I really enjoyed the music.
Oh yes, we gotta talk. We didn't even talk about the music. Sorry, there's
It's
so much in this movie. It's like a 2 hour and 40 minute movie.
yeah, and I wasn't surprised by the music because I know that it's something that happens, not in all movies, of course, but in not surprised to have it in this kind of movie. But it was they were actually pretty catchy songs. There were two numbers,
Okay.
not too much, but they were both pretty catchy, and I like how like I don't know if you noticed, but both of those songs they weren't just songs that happened.
Nope.
They're exactly like well one of them all is well is
All
the
is
one
well.
that's the one that you were comparing to Mulan, that
Hmm.
is basically stopped because of when they found Joy and it was a suicide, and you know it's so crazy like the contrast between all is well and then it ends with someone dying, and then we have the other number which is basically a love song. It's between
Hmm.
you know it's the budding romance between Pita and Rancho, but like that's a theme that carries on later when they have their romance scenes. So I always appreciate it when I notice it because I don't usually like pick up on that very easily. So the fact that I picked up on it very easily, and then there's the whole thing with the baby
Yep.
kicking, and that's how they got the baby to wake up. So
And it kicks him in the face.
yes, and
Yes.
there's like blood on his face, but. But I think like that's amazing that they did that. There were only two songs, and they were both used very well. And you know there are a lot of other movies that we watch that have music and songs in it, and they don't utilize the music like this to this degree at all. And this is not like meant to be a musical, and this is quite a serious movie despite being silly. So the fact that they use the music this well and this creatively and this meaningfully is impressive to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. But, that's going to be all the time that we have for our YouTube segment. If you guys want to hear us talk about this and more, you guys can check us out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/C3Films. It'd be great to see you guys over there. We talked about this because it was recommended to us by our viewers, and we wanted to watch Brahmastra, but we weren't able to get to that one this time around, so we will eventually be talking about that. But if there's anything else that you guys want us to watch next, we might not be able to get to it right away because we have a lot in our backlog right now, but we will eventually get to it. So just let us know in the comments what other things you think we'd like to check out or you want to hear us talk about. But what did you guys think about Three Idiots? Have you seen it? Did you love it? Do you like the music? Do you love the characters? Do you kind of agree with some of the messaging, or do you kind of feel like the messaging doesn't really work in a realistic society? What have you thought about it? Comment below. Let us know. And when you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.